Hello and welcome to our webinar about Production Assist. In this webinar, we will cover the generation of paperwork. So we will generate a paperwork for the overall patch. So some handout you can give your Lightning designer so that he sees what fixtures he has and at which DMX they are patched. We will have a look onto a Power Patch sheet so that you see how the fixtures are plugged into the plug box on the truss in there. We will look on a channel sheet paperwork where you actually see how the fixtures are assigned to specific fuses inside our RCDs, inside a specific distributor object. And then we're also looking on how to export this to a table, so something that Excel can read, and for something that is like a PDF so that you can export it and print it and give it to your colleague. In addition to this, we will learn about the QR code we are adding on all our documents so that you also can see it online. So when you change something, that even the old drawn PDF sheets still can be used to update this in here. We will have a look onto the hoist paperwork, so to make measurement table, load overviews and stuff like this. And we will then have a look on all the inventory workflow, so how to get count lists and all that stuff. I have here a project that we have started in Vectorworks. So we opened it in Vectorworks and uploaded it to the cloud and then opened it in Production Assist. I already cleaned it up a little bit and put everything in the right assembly structures. I will talk a little bit during this this webinar on what the idea behind of this is, but that is basically just a Vectorworks plan we've been importing. So you see this in here. So it's a TV studio that it has all the lights in there. It has some objects that are hung to trusses in here. This also has hoists in there. And if you're looking on here, also you can calculate it. So the structural calculation is also part of this. But that's not currently what we're going to cover into this webinar, but we will use this information for generating our paperwork later. So all the things that are on trusses are in the assembly group trussing in there so that I can generate paperwork just for this. We have something that is standing on the floor. So I've added all these stuff which is on the floor to the assembly group floor so that we can identify them really easy and make paperwork for them. And I have my dimmer city in here where I have the different house power sources and the distributors that are used for them to distribute them around in here. That is a scene tree that is used for this, for structuring it, and it helps you to organize your drawing in here so that it's more easy to show a specific paperwork that you want. We will first start with generating the first thing. We will generate a so-called picture over the overall patch paperwork. So I'm opening in here the presets that I have. Wait, I need to change this to English. Sorry for this. I forgot this. So I need to so data patch, overall patch. Let me reload it. So now we have this. So when I'm selecting the specific preset in here, it shows me all the objects inside my scene, which are fixtures, and how they're used in here. So it's a really big table, all the fixtures with their fixture ID, their purpose, the DMX universe, the DMX relative address, DMX mode, footprint, the connected power distributor, the power source it's on. So a lot of properties are in here, which I can use in order to get this in here. The first thing that you can do in here is that you can actually start the sorting in here. For example, you can start by the fixture ID. So if I'm clicking on here, it will start the fixture ID going from the lowest value to the highest value. Then you have a little bit more structures. If it's not sorted at all, so if I have no sorting, it will be sorted in general, the table, by the appearance inside the scene tree, which is a powerful thing what you learn later in here. But if I'm clicking here, it will sort it by the fixture ID going up when it's going down. There's also an option to sort by 2 or multiple values in here. So for example, I can tell him to sort by the name, and after this to sort by the fixture ID going up. So then it starts with my Asteras, and I can select the fixture ID so that it starts at 801, 802, and going on. Then I can move on and see all of this thing in here. That is actually quite handy if you want to modify or show the data in a very specific thing in here. Exporting data out of production assist is really easy. There are multiple export commands in here. So the easiest one is the export CSV. And if I'm clicking this, I can export this on the disk in here. Well, I've done this before for sure to check. And then you can open this specific CSV file, for example, in a table view, and you have what's already in the production side with the same sorting and all that stuff inside the CSV, and you can send it to a colleague and all that stuff in here. The other option that you have is that you are able to export a PDF. So that's something that you can print in here. For this, you can use the export PDF button on the below, and it shows you the specific export worksheet form in here. The export worksheet form allows you to select the paper size. If it's a vertical or horizontal way, we will choose horizontal as there's just more space on it. And now you see that there's still a problem that not everything is fitting on here. So the easiest way in here to put everything in there is use the scale issue. So if I'm putting this in here and just say 50% of the sheet should only be pre-printed, you can get everything to appear on one page in here. You can define the margin in here. So margin left is a margin that is reserved from the left, and margin right is a margin reserved to the right in here. We don't need the margin right in here because we just moved it so that it just works with this. It will be a little bit, you see there's some space left. That should be fine. The margin top allows you to define the bottom offset, which the top offset, which should be something like 30. The same thing applies to the bottom offset. When you have set this in here and you have more arranged it so that it fits on the sheets that you want, you can just click the OK button and then export it on the disk. As you see, I already done this, and now here I have my my worksheet demo in here. So I have the list exported. It has the name of the document on it, so Paperworks demo. It has a link to the actual worksheet demo in here, so that when I click this, I end up at a specific thing inside the production system, online system, and it's numbered in here. So I have a really, really long table of data, how things is patched. So when moving in there, you see the DMX mode, the DMX footprint, the power fuse. So basically all information that you need in order to make it working and to give this to a Lightning designer. This paperwork now is there's really too much information, for example, for now. So we want to reduce it. The first thing to reduce this is that you can, for example, hide specific property rows. So for example, we don't need to tell the Lightning operator what the connected power distributor is. So you can right click on it and remove the column. We don't need the power source in here. So remove the column. The power source assembly group, we don't need it. The fuse we don't need. The fuse assembly we don't need. The assembly group makes sense for classing, so let's cycle in, but we will remove the column in here. So it's really easy to change this. And maybe another thing that I want to be that the fixture ID is the first thing. So I move it in here. So the fixture ID is the first column that actually is shown in here, that we have this. A handy feature that we have is for sure that you also can change this here in this data. So you see here, I sort this by the DMX universe, and you see there's a lot of on your universe 3. And everything which is on universe 3, for example, I want to move to universe 7 or to universe 12. I just press enter on this, and it will automatically move this to my new things in here. So when I move now down, I have here all the fixtures down to the universe 12. This paperwork here now is really massive. So it contains all the fixture, which will be nice for a Lightning designer, but will be confusing if we actually want to give this for someone to patch this onside the fixture list. So for this here, the scene tree comes into play. So we move this again so that we see a little bit more of the rigs. And I want to create a power patch sheet for this specific truss line in here. So for the main LED truss, and I want to tell the people who assemble this how this is actually plugged onside the plug boxes. For this, we have something that we call assembly sheet. If I'm right-clicking this assembly group and use the command create assembly sheet, it allows me to create an assembly sheet which just contains the objects that are inside this group. When you change what's inside the group later, the paperwork automatically gets updated for this. Again, we will start with a preset in here. So there are multiple ones, and we will now start with the fixture power patch. If I'm selecting this and call it fixture power patch, I can create it. You get an alert that it has been created, and you see it that it pops up here in the worksheet view. If I'm selecting this, you see now there are much fewer entries for this specific assembly group. Also, in the 3D renderer, you now only see this specific truss line or this specific object that are part of that assembly group, which is a handy feature if you want to assemble it. So now I see in here, I have the fixture IDs from here. So I have 4 GLP impressions and 3 Clay Parkey Seniors Profiles 1. And I see how they are plugged into the specific plug box in here. I can sort by the plug box, for example, and then I see what is plugged into which. So the 101 is plugged into the port C1. The 402 is plugged into the part C2, and so on. I also see the current consumption in here so that I can have a look on how much power they actually need. If I need to turn this fixture on and off, it lists me the next fuse in line. So the next fuse for this, in order to turn this specific fixture on and off, is inside the VT1 onside fuse 3.1. So the fuse 3.1 is the fuse which is assigned to the third output of the specific thing. You can define these names by yourself when editing the truss content. We'll have a look on this in later meetings. It gives you also a specific information what the actual power source of this is. So you see everything in here is plugged to the generator with the number H1, which is basically the house power source. Now, there's still some information missing we maybe want to add in here. So what we can add here is the max current that at this specific thing can be shown. We can show the current that is currently running through this phase, and we can have a look on what the actual resulting phase of this, on which phase of the devices we will end up. You see in here, now for each of the fixtures, you have a specific resulting phase in here. Let me move this a little bit better. Resulting phase, move it up like this. So you see the first fixture, which is on C1, ends up at phase 1. The second fixture, or the next 2 fixtures, end up at phase 2. And you see that C5 is also ending up at phase 2. So it gives you a powerful way on looking on this. The nice thing about this is the resulting phase also takes into account hot patches. So if you have a hot patch in the system where you move stuff around, then it just automatically calculates the resulting phase based on the specific patch you've done with the specific hot patch in here. Okay, that is a sheet that you can give to the specific people on stake in order so that they can generate this and recable this. Right now, we only done this for one of the assembly groups, but generating this for more of them is really easy. Just select the assembly groups where you want to create it, and use the menu command in here, add new assembly sheets for all for selected objects. If I'm using this, it asks me what I want to print in here, for example, fixture power patch, and I just can press OK. And then you see it just generates you all the worksheets that you need in order to see this and you just can step through and you see what's basically in there. But I selected the wrong preset for this. I just see. Okay, let's go on. The next thing we want to generate is a channel sheet for the actual distributors we have been using. For this, I create a new assembly sheet just for the DCs in here by clicking create assembly sheet. And I start now from scratch. So I'm using an empty assembly sheet for this. I'm pressing OK. So right now, it only shows me the names of the objects and the object IDs of this. In addition to this, I want to log everything which has to do with channel. So the paperwork works like this, then when an object has the specific property, it can show it to me. So I want first start with the channel name. The channel name are the available fuses that are inside the distributors. This could be either dimmers or it could be non-dimmable power outlets. I then can tell him the channel connections, what is in there. So I see on the VT1, on the fuse 3.1, there is a fixture 101. On the fuse 8.3, there are the fixtures 614 and 615. I also can enable the specific phase usage of this. So for each of the outputs for the fuses, I see how much current is running through it and to which phase they are assigned. So I see the fuse 8.3 is assigned to the channel 3, so to L3, and approximately uses 5.87 amperage in power consumption in here. That is a really easy way of generating your paperwork. Just by adding more of these property fields, you can define your own paperwork and your own way of documentation. So for example, if you in addition want to add the assembly group in here, you can just enable the assembly group and it will show you the assembly group of the objects that are in there. Right now, it's only the dimmer city, so there's not much information coming with. But there are a lot of fields where you can display in there. For example, you can have a look on the supplier that an object has. So if you go in here and, for example, add the supplier for this to be the company A, it just logs this in and also writes this in the drawing. So it's also an easy way of seeing and understanding the data you have in your specific thing. The nice thing about Production Assist and what makes it different from other tools is that we have a unified view on the actual data. So it's not only about fixtures or fixtures, it's also about hoist and trusses. So let's have a look and generate a load measurement report for all the trussing that we have in here. For this, again, I right-click on the trussing assembly group and tell him to create an assembly sheet for this specific truss line. I can use the preset for this, for example, to be a hoist markout list extended. I'm pressing OK, and it will generate me this list. I activate it, and now I'm only seeing all the hoists in there. I can sort them by object ID. Then this is put in here. And I see the global X and global Y coordinates where they're actually mounted in here, which assembly group it is, which manufacturer it is. So really easy. So when you are doing paperwork for rigging or if you're doing paperwork for lightning, it's really easy to generate this just with one tool. Okay, next thing in here, what we also want is a load overview table in here. For this, what I can go in here, I can go to the load overview, and then it generates me this specific sheet that I've requested. So this now contains the object ID, the name, but in addition to this, the hook force and the roof force in here. Also, when I'm now in here and start to move stuff around, so for example, move this to this, it automatically updates also the table. So it's live connected to your actual power structural calculation, which is pretty handy. So right now what we're doing in here is we want to modify this as well. So I want to remove the chain shorten value as this is just enough, not enough, just too much information in there. I want to remove the hook force because I don't want to tell how much load actually goes into the hoist, but I want to show how much load goes actually into the roof. And I remove the weight of the hoist because that is not really relevant in here. So when I want to reuse that specific way of reporting, I can create a preset for this. So in here we have a create button in this, and then I can create a property template preset, and I like it Moritz hoist load overview. When generating this, it will be automatically available to all users which are part of my project. And everyone who has this specific user preset hoist load overview where he can report with this. So that's quite nice. Okay, then let's have a look on inventory for this. So common thing what you need for sure is inventory. You need to know how much is in there. In order to get this, we're going back to the scene objects. So all the objects that are in here, and then I'm going to the tab inventory. The tab inventory lists me now all the objects that are inside my drawing, which are matching my specific filter, which I assigned. Right now, I have the filter set to show structures, which will basically only show me the structures in here. You see, I have, well, let's sort them by count. So I see I have 500 of these in here, which are pipes that I use for the specific lamps, which are custom made. I have 43 lightning pipes in here, which I use to put on stage like this. And I have 12 of the 830 V3 meter pieces. So it's really easy to see this in here. So I also can have a look on other inventory in here. So for example, I can say I want to see only the fixture sheet. What this is in here, I can use the filter property in here. So then it only shows me the objects which are marked as fixture. So I have 186 Astera IX3 inside it. I have from the Titan Tube 63 and so on. Remember one thing, I've been adding this to the distributors in here. I added a field for the supplier for one thing. If I add this, you see that it also can report by specific parts. So group by is used to tell him what object should be grouped. And now all the objects that are from a specific supplier should be grouped in here. You see there's one object, which is our distributor, which comes from company A, and you need one of them from him. Now you can go in here and tell him for the other resulting one, that should come from company B. It also is then updatable with this. You can also define a spare count. So how many spares do you want to order from company A or company B? So for this, I just go into the spare and tell them, I want to have 2 spare of this. And then you see the total count goes up. And then I have 3 of this, 2 spare and 5 total. And I can type in how many I have booked. So I can type in 5 with this. When I can enable the option to show inventory errors, it shows me all the ones where the total book count is not matching the actual total count in here from the thing. Okay. The last thing that we will look onto is how to upload this to the cloud. So for this, you go in here and press the commit to project button. Well, cancel this. Okay, cancel. So I've uploaded it. And now when I'm go into this and open it on the cloud, so all the paperwork which I just created in here is also then in the browser where I can have a look on it and how it has been used. So the QR code on-site, the PDFs always link you to the specific sites onto the actual server. And when you update the paperwork, it also is updating the actual web page in here. So thank you very much for your attention. This was our short webinar about generating paperwork with Production Assist. And thank you for your time.